11 to address her classmates.
Many of you may know what kind of vehicle I have been driving for the past year. For those of you who don't, I drive a 1994 Ford F-150 5-speed pickup truck. With its cantankerous clutch and massive frame, driving this vehicle has presented many difficult times, but in addition, many enjoyable times. When I learned I had to make a speech at graduation, I knew right away that I was going to talk about the truck. Last summer, I learned how to drive this beast. My brother Jack had learned to drive it 4 years before. Our stories are completely different. My dad loved to reminisce about how much fun it was to teach Jack to drive the truck. Through all the fits and starts and stalling, they had a hysterical time. They couldn't stop laughing. By telling me about Jack's experience, my dad was trying to convince me that learning to drive a stick shift would not be as bad as I had envisioned. Well, my first experience was hysterical. Hysterical with crying. The truck stalled, shuddered, and bounced along. I had no idea what I was doing. Dad was trying to be patient, but clearly was a degree from his boiling point. I was just not getting it. More than frustrated, I got out and he took over. I said never again. I refused to learn to drive the truck. It was impossible. It felt dangerous, and I couldn't do it perfectly the first time. I had barely given it a chance, and I was giving up. So not like me. I've never been one to be defeated by a challenge. I've taken rigorous courses, played brand new sports. Yet here I was, facing what I perceived to be one of the greater obstacles of my high school career, learning to drive a truck. Intellectually, I could not figure it out, and physically, it was going to take practice, lots of it. My parents made it clear that if I wanted to drive to school my senior year, the truck was my only option. Buying a car of my own with my meager bank account was out of the question. So that was it. I had to figure it out. Just like in 8th grade, we were the oldest and we thought we were the coolest, the top of the heap at the middle school. But the very next year, we had to start over as freshmen, much as I had to learn to drive again. The high school was our big green pickup truck. Most of us were scared to go, but moving forward was our only option. We would have to reevaluate our identities as 14-year-olds and relearn something we thought we knew, an uncomfortable feeling. Things were hectic, humiliating, and confusing, like accidentally getting on the Whittier Tech bus on the first morning of freshman year, or walking into an upper-class student council meeting. We all have our awkward and embarrassing stories. Then sophomore year dawned, and many of us, or just a few, were starting to think more seriously about our futures beyond high school. And some of us were even faced with choosing AP classes. Although nerve-wracking, several of my classmates and I signed up for the courses. We would face these classes with hard work and dedication and surmount their challenges. Challenges that could be overcome, that I was frightened to take on. When it came to the truck, I found myself avoiding certain obstacles, like getting gas, driving on the highway, and parking in small spaces. Challenges that, once again, could be overcome, that I was just too frightened to conquer. But of course, I eventually mastered the highway, filled up the gas tank weekly, and only once parked between two cars. Although I was anxious, I came through and fulfilled the tasks. High school has been a learning environment in more ways than just academically. As with learning to drive the truck, one can experience frequent stalling in high school, changing friendships, styles, and reinventing one's identity. All things we didn't have figured out by 9th grade, and some, perhaps many of us, are still figuring out today. But with trial and error, we learn a lot about who we are and will be. There was definitely room for trial and error when it came to lifting one's foot off the clutch just at that exact time when you need to press the gas pedal down. This requires much finesse. One is certainly not a master at it right away. I wasn't. I sat at a stop sign with my brother one evening, stalling repeatedly. I stalled so much we ended up in the middle of the opposite lane. Jack offered to take the wheel, but I stayed put. I was living the expression, one learns from their mistakes, and I was realizing that perseverance to improve can be far more important than the actual accomplishment. Although it was a rough ride, we made it home, and I had driven. As we have transitioned from underclassmen to upperclassmen to graduates, hopefully our false starts and jerky rides have become smoother. Hopefully we are now beginning to understand who we are, what we find meaningful, and where we hope to go in life. By April, as I was cruising everywhere in the truck, I began to reflect on all of my favorite things about driving this once scary monster. The surge of power when my foot hits the gas, sitting high above other vehicles, and of course, the fabulous stereo system. These rides have exemplified the period of bliss and feeling of accomplishment I have achieved because of all the hard work I have put forth in high school. So, while I still have my discomforts with the truck, I have come to make the best of this vehicle. And this is true for high school and life also. Stepping out of my comfort zone has helped me to grow as a person. Unfortunately, my truck isn't sitting in the parking lot behind us today. I had planned to enjoy that one last ride home, but last week the truck threw me another curve. It broke down for good. The truck that has framed my speech is no longer, but I guess it was time to move on. My expectations with the truck in school have shown that life is hardly ever predictable and rarely easy. Surprises like this will occur. Like driving a standard, learning to do something new will not always take a few days or have a straight course. It may take months, maybe years, and much trial and error. And once we conquer something, we may not be perfect at it, but we should always keep in mind how important it is to persevere. Congratulations, class of 2011, and just remember, in the words of Winston Churchill, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue on that counts.